Hello everybody, welcome to IA Command. This is TV Boy and we are bringing you the update on the final adjustment to Season 6. And by the way, it is very late at night right now, but I am bringing you the face cam. Let me lower this a little bit. Hopefully the sound is okay. And yeah, late at night, everybody's asleep, so we're going to try and keep this one quick. But we'll go through all these updates. This was released on September 27th. Once again, the update article was written by yours truly, and I did have a lot of involvement with these updates, so hopefully I'll be able to shed some insight onto the choices that were made with these cards. Of course, you can check out the updates for yourself. I'll post a link in the video description, but instead of doing what I usually do, which is go through the article and look at the images, I'm actually going to look at them in a separate window using Imgur. That way you guys don't have to get distracted. And if you want to read what I wrote in the article about the changes, you can go check it out for yourself. But let's see if I can do this. Nope, that made me go away. There we go. So 9 cards were updated for Season 6.2. We had a bit of a dearth of playtest data, but we got enough that I think we could make some educated decisions on these. I was involved in a lot of the steering committee talks, just helping them out with getting these figured out. But you know, those guys have a lot of great ideas and they really know their stuff, so it wasn't that hard to kind of get a lot of these going on the right track here. Starting off with Bib Fortuna. So this card was actually pretty balanced, but I'm actually the most excited for this change. This adds a new ability to Bib. So he's actually got rid of illicit income, which was the ability where if you scored VPs using like an effect or a card, you got an extra VP, but it was once per round. You know, kind of fun, but also like very similar to Jabba, but also very, tame because you can only do it once per round. That has been replaced with a brand new ability, Illicit Arms. So this, I'm not going to read it out because you can read it up on your screen. But basically this is like Zillow technique for scum in reverse. So instead of discarding a card to add a block while defending, you can discard a card while attacking to add a damage. And this is for any friendly figure. There's no range restriction on this, but only if your army is scum. So you cannot temporary alliance Bib into your Empire army and play him with Zillow technique and just be able to pitch your cards for perfect, absolutely perfect damage control. That's not happening. But important to mention here is that with the way the ability is worded here, it works with non-scum figures. As long as your army is scum, you can use it with like droids that you bring in with Jawa scavengers. Obviously, you can't use it with rebel figures because of dirty dealing, but if you're using Jawas to bring in Imperial droids, or if you're using Afra to bring in, 000 and BT, that will work as well. So this is going to make him play a lot differently than he was in 6.0 and 6.1. He was basically like this weird, kind of like a half-costed Jabba, that could focus 2 figures and sometimes got you an extra VP. When you played Bib, from what I noticed, when you played Bib in 6.2, it didn't really feel a whole lot different from playing with like Rebel Care Package. Now that's going to be a lot different. When you play a Bib Fortuna list, I think it's going to feel way different than playing a Rebel Care Package list because of this ability. Another great thing about this ability is it gives Scum much needed access to a way to get rid of cards in hand when they've become useless. And this is really important for like unique figures command cards, so like those command cards that only one specific named figure can play. If you put those in your deck and then you draw them late game after that figure is already dead, if you're playing Empire or Rebel, you can pitch it with Zillow technique, or you can shuffle it in with like Heroic Effort. But Scum doesn't have anything. All they have is like one command card in black market prices, or you can hope that you reveal it off the top with black market and can pitch it for some VPs. But otherwise, if they draw a card in hand and they don't have the figure, it's a dead card. So this Illicit Arms is going to allow Scum lists to play a little more risky with their command card suites, which is going to make command deck building a lot more fun. So And then the other reason that I think lists with Bib are going to feel a lot different and play a lot different than Rebel Care Package is his command card. So he got a brand new command card for 6.2. It used to be called Palace Politics. Because it's a brand new card, the the name was changed to a new name. So we now have Daewanawanga, which is, I think, the first line he says in his first appearance in the movie. So this is a 0 point card. It's got two effects, actually. So it's got an effect when you play it, and then an effect when you discard it, which is something we've done with other cards, like Afra's card works similarly. So the main effect is it's a special action, and then you get to do like what Leia does, where you get to shuffle one of your command cards from your discard pile into your deck. And then the second ability is when it is discarded from your hand or deck, you can shuffle this card. So you can shuffle Daewanawanga back into the command deck, but it's limit once per round. So this is really powerful. Obviously, you're going to be wanting to pitch this to illicit arms really early. And it keeps your deck loaded, and which is really important against, because Scum really likes to draw a lot of cards, but also Scum is very susceptible to things like Strain and Grand Admiral Thrawn. So if this gets discarded to something like that, and of course it would be hilarious if your opponent is playing Thrawn and sees this on the top, because I don't think they're going to want to discard it. Or they could, they'd just be shuffling your deck. So this means that even if you draw it and you have no cards left in your deck, you can discard it to illicit arms and then shuffle this into your deck, and then you'll get it back, next round or whenever, if you draw it again, which is of course why it has that limit once per round. It would be a little bit broken if, you just kept shuffling this back into your deck every time you took Strain. That would be busted, and of course it would be broken if you could just keep discarding it to elicit income multiple times using card draw when you have an empty deck. And then of course when it's late game, you shuffle it back in and then you draw it, and maybe your deck is very low or empty, you can then, that's probably when you would want to use that special action, and then you can shuffle something in like Assassinate or On the Lam maybe, shuffle that back into your deck, and then if the game's still going on, you could use Afra and excavate this card and shuffle another card back in. So very powerful with Afra. Very good with Jabba, of course, because you want to have that card draw on demand. So you've got that synergy there going on with Jabba. So this is kind of a two-deal package with illicit arms, and this is going to make Bib Fortuna really interesting to play, I think, and a really interesting alternative to Rebel Care Package that plays a lot differently. But you're going to have to choose. You can't play them both, so you have to run either Bib as your support character, or you can take Gideon 3PO as your support figures. So I think this is going to be really fun for Scum, and this is the one I'm most excited about. So that's why I'm talking about it first. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the next Scum figure. We're just going to do this in faction by faction. So we're going to do Scum first. And the next updated card for 6.2 is the Mandalorian, which is the 10-point Mandalorian for Season 6. So this one, a lot of discussion. So much discussion on this, a lot of suggestions from the community that really helped, actually, I think, guide where this figure ended up. So as I said in the article, huge thank you to everybody in the community that put a lot of discussion and effort into this card. Also the most popular card in 6.1, probably because it was pretty broken, actually, and that's my fault. I did not account for how easy it is to get within 2 spaces of a target when you have speed 5, mobile, and you have this little baby in your back pocket that can remove stun if you ever get stunned. So he does not have the limitations of a normal melee figure for sure. So yeah, that old ability where you could just attack twice with Pierce 1 on both is just ridiculous. And he was just deleting figures in a single turn left and right, and it was crazy. So let's talk about the new version. So first of all, you'll notice he has reach up here in his keyword bar. And he does not have a melee attack, so that is just going to be applying when he does perform a melee attack. Save some room in the text box, and actually I think it's better, like more technically correct, to have it up here, because if you put it in the text box and say apply reach to this attack, well, you've already performed the attack, so how are you targeting something within 2 spaces? So yeah, I think it should work really well to have it up here. And I think most people will see it because usually you look up at the top of your abilities when you're doing an attack. So anyway, let's look at the rest of the abilities. So protective fire has changed. Now it says basically after you target a space containing the child with an attack, or after an opponent targets a space containing the child with an attack, you get to attack the attacker back. So what that means is if your opponent attacks the child, and of course it has Mudhorn Crest still, so you're going to be bringing Clan of Two to bring the child companion. And now if your opponent attacks the child companion, or if they attack a friendly figure basically that is sharing a space with your child companion, you get to perform an attack back on the attacker. And that means that you can just put the child companion overlapping Mando after he's done with his activation, and he's basically got like return fire. It's basically the same as the old protective fire from 6.1, except you don't have to incapacitate the child first. A lot of people complained about that from 6.1, so that was removed. But if you want to protect another figure, what you just do is you activate Mando, you do his thing, and then the child will move adjacent to him automatically from Clan of Two. And then you activate the child and you move the child over to whoever you want to protect with Mando. And then whoever you mark with the child figure, your opponent knows, oh, if I attack that figure, Mando's going to attack me. So I think this helps a lot with the kind of the mental tracking issues that the first protective fire was having, where you just have so many abilities that are triggering when you're attacking someone that it's really hard to keep track, especially when it's not like visibly marked on the board other than the Mando figure is there. So this way there is a visual tracker on the table, which is the yellow child companion token, that is like, hey, this is the space that protective fire is going to trigger off of. So I think it's going to make it a lot easier to deal with mentally, and it's also going to make gameplay a lot more interesting because you actually have to choose now when Mando activates. It's like, who are you going to protect? Are you going to protect Mando or are you going to protect somebody else? You can't protect both. And it gives your opponent kind of a strategic counterplay too, of like, okay, well, you're protecting that figure, so I'm not going to attack him, but I'm going to attack this figure. But maybe like you just give them all bad choices, right? Or do you make one figure a really bad choice so that that's not going to get attacked? I think it's a lot more strategically interesting. And I think it was a great suggestion by the community. I think Destructor said he suggested that one, so I will take his word for it. Next update was to Beskar Spear. So this used to do just 2 melee attacks with his dice pool with Pierce 1, which was crazy, and I apologize for suggesting that. That was crazy. So now it says perform a melee attack using 1 red, 1 yellow die and apply Pierce 2 to the attack results. And of course he has reach, so that will have reach as well. And then it says perform your ranged attack. So this is text templating borrowed from Jyn Erso from season 4, except he does not get movement because he is already speed 5 and mobile. So he didn't need it, and he has reach, which Jyn Erso does not. So yeah, this basically is toning down that double attack he was getting to just a red and a yellow. It does up the Pierce to Pierce 2, although that can get zillowed, so and he still has the reroll, so he's basically like a super Royal Guard attack for free, and then he gets to do his ranged attack. So I think this is going to help make his damage feel a lot more manageable when he attacks you. He's not going to just be able to delete any figure that costs 8 points or less in one go, like he was before. And he also has the protective fire to add more damage if you can play it correctly. So I think and of course he's also 14 health. He's got +1 block, and he's got the little baby Grogu running around with him, recovering 1 damage each turn. So he's super durable for 10 points compared to something like Han. So I think Mando is in a good spot here. I think he's gonna be really fun to play. People really liked this concept. Like, he was the most popular figure through all of playtesting, I think. Excuse me. And yeah, so there was talk about, should this card even exist? Like, why do we need this character? But people really wanted to play him in playtesting. Maybe because he was so powerful in 6.1, or maybe because he was super interesting as a queen piece for Scum. But yeah, I like the changes here. I was a big supporter of them, and I think he's going to do really good in 6.2. Moving on, next scum figure is Mr. Mayfield himself. The Merc with a mouth? No, wait, that's somebody else. Sorry. So Mayfield he had a big change in 6.1 where he got the locked and loaded ability added, which is really cool and I think very thematic to his character, since if you look in his picture, I think, or maybe it's not in this picture, but if you watch the show, he actually has 3 guns that he wields. One of them is held by a droid arm, which is also represented here in the original ability that was designed by the steering committee. So the ability to have 3 power tokens is kind of like evocative of the fact that he holds 3 guns. And he also generates 2 power tokens when he attacks. So that's not new. What is new is he used to have +1 damage innate. That was added in 6.1. In addition to making his surges change from Pierce 2 and +1 to +2 and +1. The +1 damage has been removed. He was hitting a little too hard for people's tastes on his first attack during his main attack during his activation. But we also realized that his return fire, or not return fire, his ability used to be called Guns Out, and it wasn't doing much. He basically just used it once. So that has been changed also to remove the -1 damage. So this is more evenly distributing the damage that he was dealing with his main attack and with his response attack. And of course, because removing the -1 damage makes Guns Out basically the same as return fire, so the name has been changed to return fire, the same as the ability on Han Solo. Although, yeah, I wouldn't worry. Let's not worry about that. What's the actual text on return fire? Don't worry about it. It's the same, basically. So yeah, I think this Mayfield, I think is still fine. I would have changed things a little differently, but I think this is still going to work totally fine, because what you're going to do with him is you're going to put power tokens on him early. You're going to focus him, so he's going to be focused with +1 damage, which is what we usually saw in 6.1. He's going to hit super hard because he only has +1 damage ability, so even if he's attacking something with no defense dice, or if he's attacking something with Zillow ready, it doesn't matter. Like, he's hitting very hard. And he's still got that cool Smuggler Trooper combination. I think he's going to see a lot of play in Empire as well as Scum. And he's going to make the Claudite a lot more interesting. Alright, moving on. I think that's it for Scum. So moving into Rebels, and we have Caradon. This card also very controversial. Specifically, the ability for Caradon to perform multiple attacks with Call the Vanguard and Parting Blow. So obviously Call the Vanguard lets you move for an attack at the start of the round because she's a trooper, and then since she's a brawler and she has this smash ability that lets her push something during her activation, it lets her self-start the Parting Blow combo that a lot of people know from Vader and Looking for a Fight and Dark Energy, although she couldn't play Dark Energy. So that was kept. She can still self-start Parting Blow. What was changed about her was her dice pool. Her dice pool used to be blue, red, red, which was super strong. That has been downgraded to blue, red, yellow. However, because the steering committee did not want her to be completely reliant on having Call the Vanguard and Parting Blow in hand to be worth 9 points, she has gained a new ability, Shock and Awe, which is where when you declare an attack, you may replace 1 yellow die in the attack pool with 1 red die, effectively restoring her back to her blue, red, red. So what this is doing is saying, hey, if Call the Vanguard and Parting Blow aren't in your hand, she should be attacking blue, red, red. If you are playing those cards, then you only get blue, red, red once, and then after that you go down to blue, red, yellow. So good. I think I like that solution. The reason that the traits weren't removed, so I mean they could have just removed trooper or brawler from her traits, or they could have changed smash so it didn't push. But she's gone through 2 updates now, playtest sessions or whatever you call them, where she was able to do that, and that's kind of become just part of her identity. So instead of taking those away and making her play a lot differently, she's been allowed to keep that, and instead basically adding diminishing returns so that her attacks get weaker as she makes more attacks in a round. And I think that works just fine. I'm interested to see how she does. I think she's still very strong, especially if you build your command deck around her, especially with heavy weapons still there, so she can still play overwhelming impact and lock on. Very strong, very strong. But hopefully tempered. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so a lot of people didn't like the extra attacks, but especially didn't like that she could attack during another figure's attack that while they were attacking her if she played ambush into parting blow. Ambush used to allow her to use her smash ability, which would let her push somebody, and that would allow her to use parting blow to attack them on top of the red dice of damage she was dealing, and often would result in killing whatever figure was attacking her, ending its activation, preventing all the damage that would have been done to her, and then she could then activate and wreak havoc from close range to the rest of the figures that were there. So, new ambush has been changed. It no longer lets her perform smash. It just has her dealing 2 damage to the attacking figure. So that is a big fix to that, in my opinion. I think that's good. I think that not being able to kill somebody while they're attacking, or at least when you attack, you should know now. Like, just like when you attack Ahsoka, if she's got a block power token and you're attacking with somebody with 3 health, you are rolling the dice. And that is what is happening with Kara now. You just don't attack her with somebody that has 2 health remaining if she hasn't played ambush yet. But the problem was before was, well, you'd have to pray that she didn't have ambush and parting blow, because she might be dealing 8 damage to you and not just 2. So this limit puts a cap on that to 2. I think it's still a really cool card as far as like flavor and what it does, giving her that extra movement when she gets attacked, so she can like get in, close the gap to somebody, is pretty cool. So, and that's not going to be a negative play experience anymore, hopefully. And I think that's the only Rebel figure that was changed. There's 9 cards, so moving on, we are going into Empire. And Empire, the Flame Trooper was updated and actually buffed. Flame Trooper got buffed with a Pierce 1 added to its attack. The Weaken was swapped out for a Bleed. And I think that was it. So I think the justification for this one was, so after Incinerate got changed to remove the Napalm token and the strain it was dealing, it felt like there was some of that flavor being lost of like setting the target on fire. And so the Bleed there is supposed to act as like a proxy for a flame, where, when you're bleeding, it's very similar to being on fire. It's like every time you do something, you're suffering strain unless you like stop to take an action to put it out. It's very, very thematically close to being on fire. It just says bleed. I wish there was a way to be like, this is actually burn. It's a bleed token, but it's a burn token. And you can't really do that except without creating the same problems that Napalm tokens had, which was, what the heck is a Napalm token? I'm a new player, or I'm not a super enfranchised player. I don't want to have to go out to this website to look up this token that you guys made up that isn't on the card. Ideally, reading the card should explain the card, other than like a few keywords that we talk about. So bleed, obviously a keyword. Priority target, now a keyword. So, and then the Pierce one was added just because a lot of the abilities that trigger off of the Flame Trooper are very linked to dealing at least 1 damage to the target. And red-green with just a search for +2 can be a bit swingy, especially against really hard targets. So This way, it's kind of ensuring that at least he'll do at least 1 damage, so you can get bleed and blast, which then leads to incinerate, etc., etc. Not sure about how I feel about this card being buffed. I have feelings about squad upgrades. I think they are difficult to balance. I thought, they were overpowered when they first came out, and then they were nerfed. I'm not convinced yet that the Flame Trooper wasn't super good already. So, I saw it was getting buffed. I was like, I'm not sure, but there was, I see the argument for the Pierce 1 wanting to make sure you trigger, because if he doesn't deal damage and he attacks somebody, all he's doing is placing a Rebel token, which, it's fine. So yeah, that's the Flame Trooper. Hope he does not break the game. Moving on. And we have the last card, which is the Snow Trooper. This was a very small change. Snow Trooper had Surge for Pierce 2, and that was really the only damage modifying surge he had, which means that if you're paying 11 points, maybe 12 if you're playing Lion Ambush with this guy, you could have one of these guys attack and completely flub and roll just surge, 0 damage, no way to modify that with, converting any of those surges into damage, which means you can't use any of the other abilities, which were Weaken and Focus, which require that you deal damage to trigger. So these were given a quality of life improvement, swapping out the Surge for Pierce 2 and adding Surge for +1 damage to two of its existing Surge abilities. From what I've seen, the attack math is very similar. At least when you're attacking like just the vanilla black die, it's very close. Like, it's not a buff at all. I think this one gets better when you are attacking a white die or attacking something with Zillow Technique readied. But I think it was actually better with Surge for Pierce 2 if you're attacking like 2 black dice or a black dice with a +1 block and no Zillow Technique. But I think all in all, this is better, though. Just it brings up the floor, like I mentioned. Ooh, I gotta finish quickly, guys. Starting to lose my voice here. So yeah, bringing up the floor, making the Snow Troopers less swingy, basically. So that's it. Those are all the... Oh no, there's one more. Excuse me, one more change to Covering Fire. So this used to give +1 surge to all troopers, which is pretty crazy, especially with like trooper swarms. It's just too much of a force multiplier, and it was leading to... It's actually a big contributor to the trooper dominance from Season 6, the beginning of the season, playtest season, but it just took a while for the steering committee to kind of agree and figure out how to fix it without nerfing it too much. And I think this is a good solution. Originally it was going to be power tokens, but I think I like hidden. It is kind of scary though, because you can combine hidden with power tokens, so there's still a lot of power there, especially with like Krennic. But it does put a nice hard cap on the bonus surges you're giving out to your whole squad. In that you're not giving out to your whole squad, you're just giving 3 figures an extra surge when they attack. And a bit of a defense buff too if they can't attack right away. So yeah, hopefully this Covering Fire is still good. Still good capstone for trooper lists. Excuse me. And those are all the changes. So I'll just say that these 9 cards, all these changes seem to be pretty well received by the community. At least by the more active, vocal members of the community. And that's good. And I'm glad people are liking them and happy with these. I think they're going to be really good. I think the season is going to have a nice, strong ending. With they are a lot more of a change than we've seen in the previous seasons with the 0.2 update. Usually, 0.1 is usually the big changes. Is usually the big changes, and then 0.2 is usually kind of just tweaking things that needed tweaking. Usually pretty small changes, and these were big. Like Bib basically got an overhaul. Um, Mando got an overhaul, kind of. Yeah, so these are pretty big. Some of them are small, but some big changes here. And so the community vote is going to be happening a month and a half from now. I think it closes November 5th is what we were going to, as we were saying. I think we're going to extend it from November 2nd to November 5th, and the approved play will start on November 8th. So people have about a month and a half to try out these changes before they have to vote on them. Some people have expressed that, usually they're smaller changes and wondering if they're going to have more time. But I think it's to avoid disrupting, the schedule we're on. What I think I'll do is I will start posting up some game logs from 6.2 games to allow people to kind of be able to spectate, because you can only play so many games, when you're playing online on Vassal. You can only play so many games. So I understand that people will feel like maybe they don't have enough time to get enough games in with these figures. So hopefully if we can put up some of these game logs, and I'll commentate on them if I probably have to, we can give people a chance to see these cards in action, more games than they would if they just played with them, and get more of a bird's eye view on how these new changes are affecting the game and are affecting Season 6. So that's it for 6.2. I hope you guys like these changes. Let me know what you think in the comments. And also, regarding the community vote, there's a big change coming up to how that is going to work. Also, the tournament dates for Season 6 approved play have been selected, and I think Isaac is going to be posting those very soon. So make sure to check the IACP website for both the announcement on how the new community vote is going to work, and the approved play Vassal tournament dates for Season 6. Alright, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'm glad we got to see each other, and I'll see you again.